Czech architecture is mainly dealing with this, considering no place, like airport stations and place where on the opposite of the communitarian buildings,
yes,
you have just to flow away, just to move through. But also at the same time, those buildings and those kind of let's say cheap flight experience in a way transform the European cities and also the youngest way of dealing with the place. What do you think about it?
Well, my experience of travelling, on a budget airline, you arrive in an airport which looks like it's a military airbase or something. There's no cash machine, and you suddenly your usual experience of flying to a big city is challenged. And I think you often find yourself in an area of the city that's where you see the ordinary side of life. You kind of travel in on the bus and just through the industrial parts of the city, and you look out of the window and you see all the ordinary things, the kind of shared experience in a way between European cities.
The backstage of the European cities.
Exactly, and the cheap hotels and the office blocks and the suburban housing. I think what's interesting about that experience is it's similar, but it's also very different, and I think it helps actually to realise what's distinctive about a place, because we all have a shared experience basically of modern life. We all have pretty much similar lives, unless we're extremely rich. And so I think it actually it speaks to us back of the specificity of our own experience, and travelling actually helps you to realise what's the same and what's different.
Czech architecture is dealing with some of the hotspots in relation to contemporary architectural research and what is going to be built as a new social environment playing in the contemporary town. So, what do you feel are in this moment the most interesting topics the architecture should work with, and which is producing the most interesting and challenging, emerging experimental buildings?
I really definitely think the whole notion of green design, sustainability, caring for the environment, that's going to be the huge theme in the coming years. You see it creeping in now to every single conversation. You've just done a book on green design in Italy, for example. I think personally I'm slightly kind of realistic about the environmental situation. The world is changing fast, the temperature is rising, sea levels are going to rise, it's kind of inevitable, and I think that the idea that you can stop that just by designing buildings in a different way is probably a little bit of a fantasy. But at the same time, I think that they're related to the whole environmental sustainability issues, the issue of social sustainability, and I think really in the last 20 or 30 years, architects forgot about society. They became so in love with business, so in love with skyscrapers, iconic museums and things like that, creating crazy shapes. They became so addicted to their computers that they forgot that normal people have to use their buildings. So many of the things that you see built around the world now, so many of the things that are even on my website, on Design, are actually really inhospitable environments that look great in the media, but are awful places to experience.
Czech architecture is an exhibition playing with new topics, places where a series of architects has designed communitarian and new spaces for people, and thinking to this kind of possibilities, like most of the designers are experimenting which kind of new public spaces for the next communities, for example, which is another way a social problem of sustainability for the cities. And I think, do you think there are some interesting experience under construction in England or in London which can be possibly one of the next missions for Czech architecture in the next future?
Well, I think the kind of projects that are most interesting are where the audience and where human beings are at the centre of the experience. And I mean, you mentioned David Adjaye before, and we've just published a building by him which opened recently. It's called the Stephen Lawrence Centre.
Sure.
The mission of the building is to get young people involved in architecture.
Sure.
So but what's great is that often community buildings can be quite patronising, quite low quality, because community is low down on the list of priorities. You've got the art galleries by the star architects, and the community buildings quite low. But here's an example of the best quality architecture.